I ended up changing the name of who I am or what I do in my business cards. And this is true. If you were to pick up my personal business card right now, it doesn't say on there that I'm a Bowen therapist. It doesn't say on there that I am a mindfulness mentor. What it says is that I'm a punctuation expert. And I know that seems kind of funny, but I specialize in two particular aspects of punctuation: full stops and commas. And I want to elaborate on that now, because this is going to be one of the most important tools that you can develop as a Bowen therapist in terms of how you're approaching your clients and how you're approaching your own personal journey. A punctuation, or a full stop, is the ultimate form of healing. And this is how it works. Whereas a comma is actually the cause of our disease. A full stop comes at the end of a statement of fact. So when we're in the process of experiencing life, and as a Bowen therapist, while you're applying a treatment, what you're doing is observing a series of facts, and each fact doesn't have a comma, it has a full stop. So as you're listening to somebody, you're observing the nature of who they are mentally, energetically, physically. You're watching their bodies, and you're stating facts in your mind about what it is that you're observing. And each fact, full stop. Each fact, full stop. And then as your client gets up onto the bed and you start touching the body, every time you're touching tissue and you're feeling the range of tissue, you're observing facts. Full stop. Observing facts. Full stop. At no point do you put a comma in there. At no point do you have it mean anything. Because ultimately, we think we know what stuff means, but invariably, any meaning we give is limited by our knowledge. Now, you could do that, but I would suggest to you that the capacity to use full stops is going to be much more powerful than using commas. Where we use a comma is in the model of cause and effect. So in other words, when we're inclined to be following the dictionary definition of health and disease, then we'll be inclined to want to use commas, because that's how we come up with the way in which we treat or develop a remedy for what it is that we're dealing with. From the mindfulness approach, what we're doing is creating an environment that allows the sacred or the holy to manifest. And so the way that we do that is to use full stops. So on the bottom of my business card, my punctuation expert goes on to say on the card, full stops invite God in, commas pushes God out. And so the whole notion of having a full stop here is the idea that we invite grace, with a capital G, to become involved in the healing process. And this is about bringing in an energy and a component of healing that has a very, very profound capacity to bring about change and transformation that goes beyond the science of healing. I was very involved in Bowen Therapy in its very early days before it became very scientific, and it was lots of mums and dads and farmers and housewives and ordinary people who were learning Bowen Therapy that were doing amazing things that had no scientific rationale for how Bowen worked, and yet was still getting amazing results, even though they didn't fully understand what it was that they were doing. And I think probably the greatest demise in terms of its core spiritual nature is that we've become so entrenched in a medical model that we've lost the spirit and the art of healing, and that our associations have channeled the whole idea that what makes a good Bowen therapist is somebody who has lots of anatomical knowledge and understanding in terms of being able to apply all of this science in order to achieve results. But I can tell you that in the early days, and I'm talking what I saw happening in the late 80s and in the early 90s, was a whole lot of very ordinary people with no scientific background doing amazing things. And it's my rationale, based on what I'm talking about here today, is that what they were doing was inviting grace to be able to be involved in the healing process.